What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and continue learning about how the UK got so rich. Part 2. If you have not seen Part 1, feel free to go check that out first, or stay here in Part 2. That's perfectly fine as well. But in Part 1, I started learning about how, although the UK is only the 21st biggest in terms of population size, somehow the UK is still in the top 5 biggest, most successful economies in the world. And I am very curious about how that is possible. And today, I'm interested in continuing to learn about how exactly the UK accomplished that. So, with that being said, let's take a look.
The UK has a strong financial centre, partly due to the language. English is, of course, the international business language. Its location at 0° longitude can capture the trading hours of both New York and Tokyo, thus the span of the global finance industry. Its proximity
What? What is this? Huh? What kind of hack is this? What kind of cheat code is this? Wait a minute. The United Kingdom just so happens to be in like the perfect spot, geographically speaking, to do business with both like the United States and then all the way to Japan as well. That's just like sheer luck. So that's really interesting. I've never thought about something like that. The way time zones work. Like the UK is kind of in the middle of a lot of really important economic world centers and cities and what? That's not fair. Hey, wait a minute.
both New York and Tokyo, thus the span of the global finance industry, its proximity to EU, a huge trading bloc, and having historical core competence in finance. Historically, the UK benefited from imperialism, looting its colonies and imposing unequal trade treaties on weaker countries in order.
Oh my god. This is kind of what I was really interested in when I first saw the topic of this video. How did the UK get so rich? We've learned a lot about the modern day, but I'm also interested in like the history of the UK and like the British Empire, and I think that's what we're finally kind of touching on here, that the British Empire was like this huge worldwide super successful dominating entity, and that definitely had something to do with the UK being so successful now in the modern day, you know? Huh.
Or competence in finance. Historically, the UK benefited from imperialism, looting its colonies and imposing unequal trade treaties on weaker countries in order to take advantage of them and capture most of the benefits of their trade. Look at the East India.
Wow, the narrator really kind of shines that part of British history. He's talking about it in like a negative way. It's also just like, it's just the byproduct of like, if you're the empire that is the most powerful and the biggest and in control, you're going to reap most of the like even unequal benefits. You're going to get most of the benefits of that fact.
Company, for example. The rich countries, it could be argued, still take advantage of poorer ones through inciting if poor countries want aid. They do not set protective tariffs that the rich countries themselves use during their own development to nurture industrial development. They impose on poor countries a development model that they did not themselves use and which has many flawed problems.
I'm glad that they're kind of talking about this. This isn't really the whole point of this video topic, but of course, like, a lot of the biggest countries in the world outsource a lot of their work to lower economy countries around the world that are willing to be paid a lot less to outsource that work to them. And it's definitely not fair, but it does seem to be the way the world is structured.
Market, open borders to capital, and no policies. In short, allowing the advanced Western firms to come in and capture the market. So yes, the UK is still rich, and it is likely to continue to be relatively rich for the near future, because so many of its...
There you go. There you go, UK. You're rich, and you're probably gonna stay rich Congratulations! You heard it here first.
Advantages are due to historical legacy that give the UK huge development advantages and global power and influence.
Oh, wow.
But the UK is not perfect. It does have problems. As
Oh.
stated earlier, per capita measures ignores wealth distribution. The UK has pretty high inequality for a rich country.
Yeah, I mean, talk about wealth inequality. That is, it's hard to find a place that is worse with wealth inequality than the United States. It sounds like the UK has the exact same issue where, like, the top 1% of people has, like, 90% of all the money, you know? And then the poorest of the poor people are really, really suffering. Like, and the middle class probably needs to be bigger and all these sorts of things.
Figures from Parliament show it is as high as the 1960s and 70s as it is now. The
Wow.
UK is also home to a number of large energy companies, including 2 of the 6 oil and gas superpowers,
Okay.
BP and Royal Dutch Shell. The UK is
Ah.
also rich in a number of natural resources, including coal, tin, limestone, iron ore, salt, clay, chalk, gypsum, lead, and silica.
Oh, wow. I had no idea about any of this stuff. This is fascinating to me because this obviously has a lot to do with the wealth of the UK. What natural resources the UK has that it can like sell and export to the rest of the world. What were all these again? I heard like tin and limestone and all this crazy stuff.
Limestone, iron ore, salt, clay, chalk, gypsum, lead, and silica.
Wow.
Forbes also rated the UK as the best country in the world for doing business. The UK also
Oh.
ranks as the second best country in the world for startups, only behind
Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The UK is number 1 for doing business? What does that mean exactly? Doing business with the UK is like the number 1 best experience? Or doing business like having a business in the UK is like the number 1 experience? I don't know.
The UK also ranks as the second best country in the world for startups,
Ah.
only behind the US, and
Hey!
ranks as the
Aha!
8th best country in the world for ease of business. The fact that
Wow.
English is classed as the language of business and billions of people around the world either speak it fluently or as a second language highly benefits the UK. It makes
Yes. The United States benefits from that as well. Like, just because that is one of those things where currently English is like the business language, the language that everyone kind of has to learn. So like Americans and people from the UK, we sort of start out with this natural benefit of speaking English, and English happens to be used mostly, you know.
doing business easier and increases efficiency drastically. Imagine a Japanese businessman who only speaks Japanese
Yeah.
trying to close a deal with an Ethiopian man. This would prove
Yeah.
rather difficult and would require a very specific and unique translator to assist. You
Right.
may have heard of this little old city in the southeast of England called London. London is classed as the financial capital of the world. So
Is that a technical thing? London is classified as a financial capital of the world. Who decides that? Not that I don't think it's true. It's just like who gets to classify certain cities as like that's a financial capital right there. But you can kind of guess what these are, right? Like London, of course, New York City, like Tokyo, places like that.
sometimes described as the city of cities because each borough is completely different to the next. London is the world's most international and connected financial centre, providing
Wow.
unrivaled access to global markets. It is a magnet for
Wow.
workers from around the world who make up a very diverse pool of financial and professional service specialists.
Wow. London, I mean, according to this video, it seems like London is the financial capital of the world, the most international city in the world, and just like the place to be to do business on a global scale. Like London has taken that spot.
In other words, London is the most influential and important city in the world
Wow.
when it comes to financial markets
Wow.
and business. It is the
Wow. I think a lot of Americans would be shocked to hear that because a lot of Americans, we tend to think like, oh, America, that's where stuff happens. We've got the biggest cities and success. And it's like, actually, it's London. It's London. But that makes a lot of sense to me, especially considering where London is located and just how international and economically successful it is. That makes sense to me.
The capital of the former most powerful colony on Earth, and although in the 21st century this no longer exists, its unrivaled importance and an opportunity still remains. London is the world capital for foreign exchange trading, with a global market share of 43% of the daily 6.6 trillion global turnover. One of the world's most visited cities, London has something for everyone, from history and culture to fine food and exceedingly good times.
That's interesting that there's an entire part of this video about why is the UK so rich, so successful, such a big economy. There's a whole section of this video just dedicated to London. That's how much of an impact that London alone makes, like, in regards to the whole world.
With such diversity, London's cultural dynamism makes it among the world's most international cities. It is a city of ideas, an innovator of art and culture.
Yeah, and also, I'm just realizing this, it makes sense that this special title belongs to London of all the cities in the world, because, again, London is located, like, it's in Europe. It's by all these countries. It's the perfect spot. It's got the resources and the businesses and the connections, and London really is like this perfect city for being the business hub of the world. Yeah, it's all starting to make sense to me.
Yes, for the average Joe, it is expensive and life can be quite challenging at times, but for the mega rich, it is a city where business and money is to be made in vast amounts. Incredibly, although the UK is the 5th largest economy in the world and completely dwarfs many larger countries in terms of GDP, out of the top 100 highest market cap companies in the world, only 2 are from the UK. AstraZeneca, the guys who developed one of the COVID-19 vaccines, and Linde, a chemical and gas company worth 172 billion and 160 billion respectively. The UK also does...
Interesting. So the UK doesn't necessarily have like the biggest companies that were made in the UK as far as like the S&P 500 and stuff. But I'm willing to bet that all of the most important companies in the world, no matter where they're from, have like headquarters in London. So that's interesting to think about.
Does make a considerable amount of income from tourism, pre-pandemic of course. With over 40 million visits in 2019, inbound tourism contributed to around 28 billion to the British economy, although just over half of that was spent in London, which was the third most visited city in the world, 21.7 million.
The third most visited. I'm surprised. It's the third, not the most visited. The most visited is Bangkok and then Hong Kong. Really?
Behind second place Bangkok and first place Hong Kong. So although the UK is completely and utterly dwarfed by the likes of USA and China in terms of economy size, this is expected as their populations and land size are astronomically bigger. The UK...
Yeah, I think that's really the crux of this whole topic here today. It's amazing that given the size of the UK, how freaking successful and wealthy that it is, and how big its economy is, and how important the UK and London is to the world. That's really, really, like, spectacular. That, like, I can't emphasize that enough, how amazing that is.
Overall is a friendly, welcoming place, and London is one of the most sought-after cities to live and work in the world. In my real-life job, I work with so many people from across Europe and the world, and they all say how moving to London is everyone's dream. If you want to progress your career and let your dreams come true, then London is the place to be.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So it's a lot of people's dreams to, like, move to London, because that's, like, where the stuff is at. That's where it's going on. I can absolutely see that. I bet that's true for a lot of people around the world, like from all sorts of countries, or like that are interested in business, want to relocate and like live in London. That's interesting to think about. That also must explain why London is like a very diverse sort of city. Yeah, that's great. I think we're at the end of the video, actually. This was so fascinating to me. This was by the Geography Bible, and I gotta give it a like, because that was such a great video. So many interesting insights into this question of how the UK became so rich, why it is so successful. It's really interesting. We learned a couple things here, I think, starting with like how really important the UK actually is on a global scale. It's geographically in a great spot. It's got London. It's got the history of like the British Empire and getting all sorts of resources, like just from the sheer domination and history of the British Empire, which kind of set up the UK for a really bright future. And sure enough, here we are in 2024, and the UK is still to this day one of the biggest, most important like nations on the planet. So this was just such a fascinating topic I wanted to learn more about, and also see if there was any sort of secrets that I could learn about how it became so rich. Any little secrets. And I think I did learn a thing or two here. So I enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on anything we learned here today and how the UK is so successful, economically speaking. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK and UK culture and learning things about the UK for the first time, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.